Mr. President, thanks for your time. We heard on the news yesterday, or we are in possession of a document that speaks to the warrant of apprehension by the regional magistrate in Botswana, where you and the other people are expected to present themselves before the courts of law in Botswana. What's your reaction? What do you know?
This is just a continuation of what I have told you before. In fact, I would really plead with you to maybe find time to play for your audience, to remind them of the issues from our past interviews. So what's happening, Sophie, Kihore, you remember I mentioned that back in 2019, after I left the ruling party, because my CC was demonstrating the character of a typical dictator, I then joined another party, an opposition party, and we succeeded in unseating them in their stronghold, in their main stronghold in the country, through the campaigning that I was doing with others to help other opposition parties. That for him was the crime. Not these funny things that you're hearing about now. There's been no crime, I've done nothing wrong. That was the crime, to have left the ruling party and campaigned against him. And you remember that at the time, they brought up this allegation that I had stolen 10 billion US dollars. And I'm happy to say, a couple of months ago, the Chief Justice himself wrote a letter to Masisi in which he said that that affidavit was fabricated, that the government brought, accusing me of having stolen that money. The Chief Justice himself. It had gone to court, where it was also thrown out as a fabrication. And Masisi himself directly presided over that false affidavit. He sat with them and helped them to draft the lies that went into that fabrication. So that's where we are. And then the following year, you remember, I informed you that they tried to poison me on 3 occasions. And the proof of that is that even the special rapporteur from the United Nations confronted the Botswana government about what they had tried to do. So that is where we are. So after that 10 billion thing was thrown out by the court, they then dreamt up another charge, firearms, that I was in possession of firearms which were unlicensed. But I have the licenses. They tried to come to the house to say that they wanted to search and take them away, but they came with the wrong search warrant. Despite the fact that they came with the wrong search warrant, I offered them, I said, I've got nothing to hide. Tomorrow let's meet, I'll display the weapons and the licenses. They didn't come that day. They didn't come for another 10 days. So that just goes to show you that this was just a witch hunt. Now, this is the latest in the whole saga of trying to say that I should be arrested for those same charges which have been going on the whole of last year. Now, where we are now is that I have resolved previously, since 2019, we have got elections coming up in just over a year. This coming year, 2023, is going to be very busy politically in our country, as I'm sure it's going to be in South Africa, with your elections also coming in 2024. And I am going to campaign very rigorously to ensure that there's regime change in Botswana. Because the country, the poor people of Botswana, who are suffering a lot of pain due to his misrule and incompetence, a totally failed leader, the corruption that has taken place under him. I have said I'm going to be there in the forefront because I believe I still have some influence on the people of Botswana, having been a former president. The degree of which we can debate, but I do have some influence. And I'm going to use all that influence to ensure that he does not come back, because he's not good for the country. And that is why they are trying everything to ensure that I'm removed from the scene by hook or by crook.
A word or a phrase, regime change, it's quite a sensitive one on the continent. Using such a phrase, are you not scared that this might aggravate the current tension?
You know, I have been subjected to this victimization, this vindictiveness, this intolerance for the last 4.5 years. They've already tried to poison me, Sophie. So what more can they do to me if you're not trying to eliminate somebody when you talk about aggravate? When I talk about a regime, you can talk about a government. This is my own opinion. Others may have their own opinions. You have governments, like here in South Africa. You have others referred to as administrations. Like in the US, they tend to talk about the Biden administration, the Obama administration. But when you talk about a regime, in my opinion, is what you label an autocratic administration or government, a dictatorship. Those are regimes. So I'm talking about regime change, that we have to get rid of that regime and bring in the kind of dispensation we had before, a democratic government of the nature we had in the past.
The other issue, when you were in Lesotho for the inauguration of the Prime Minister of Lesotho, President Masisi was there. The head or the chair of the organ on Troika, politics and defense and security in the SADC region, President Hage Geingob was there. President Ramaphosa was there, President Heshelema was there, the incoming chair of the organ. Did you perhaps find time to try and discuss with the leaders, but also President Masisi himself, to try and find a amicable solution to this tension?
No, I didn't, because really that kind of occasion, it's very difficult to find that time to be able to sit down and to address them. But all the people you have mentioned, they know the issues. So it wasn't that if I had met them and I had the opportunity, I would be briefing people who didn't know what was going on. They all know, because some of those you have mentioned, I have sat down and spoken to them about what's happening in Botswana. They know it. They have got embassies in our country who are also reporting to them, I'm told, about what is going on. Now, when you talk about Masisi, there have been various attempts. There have been attempts by some heads of state in the region. There have been attempts by former heads of state from the continent. There have been attempts at home by the clergy, by people from his own party, elders in his own party, and elders from the area that I come from, to talk to him and engage him, to try to bring about some kind of understanding, reconciliation. But he has rebuffed them at every opportunity. I have said I'm willing to cooperate, because it would be very rude and impolite if such people, such prominent people, say they would like to help, and you would say, I'm not interested, despite what he's done to me, what he's done to my family. Don't forget, he's had members of my family detained unlawfully, without warrants or anything like that. They prevented me and my brothers going to bury my sister, to attend her funeral. We had to watch it being live streamed here in South Africa. These are the people who, in August last year, at the SADC meeting in DRC, when the founders of SADC were given awards, including my father, and governments were asked to assist the families of those who came before us to receive awards. The Botswana government refused to facilitate our travel there, and even refused to accept the award on our behalf. Those are the kind of people we are dealing with. So Masisi is just somebody who wants to totally erase the legacy, my family's legacy, and everything we've contributed to the country. It's all about himself and no one else.
To someone in Botswana or somewhere on the continent who is saying this is a legal matter, not a political matter, How do you respond to that?
It is both legal and political. I've been in the courts, I've been winning in the courts, but recently I won 2 cases against them in the Court of Appeal, which is the highest court in the land. But still, they defied the court order and went into my residence, which they have been illegally occupying, refusing my staff to go back and removing things from my house and putting other things back into that residence. This is the official residence of a former president. So we have now instituted a case of contempt, and we have directed it at the head of the intelligence service called Mahosi, who he himself was kicked out of the army on the case of misappropriation of funds. So you've got a criminal there engaging in criminal activities. So we have asked for, as part of that contempt, for him to be imprisoned. And this was about 2 weeks ago. They are trying to serve him. He's avoiding, he's running away, being served. And how does he, this is retaliation, what we are talking about. So in retaliation, because it is his organization, the intelligence service, who Masisi has weaponized against his political opponents and other opponents, who signed the application for the warrant of arrest.
You are in South Africa currently. When I spoke to you previously, you said you will go back to Botswana. You are still in the country. As this issue continues, there's likely to be a standoff between the 2 governments, because perhaps they will request the South African government to act on this warrant of apprehension. What is your view?
Well, we are prepared for that. In fact, I would welcome it, because if they ask the South African government to act, that would be in the form of an extradition request. And when an extradition request comes in, you're not just put on the plane or in a vehicle the next day and sent back to Botswana. You go to court. It's going to be heard in court. And that is something I would welcome. I'd welcome it because it would assist me to divulge, to reveal, to expose in a foreign court what has been going on in Botswana. So all the evidence that they think they have against me, I will also have all the evidence to show that it is all fabricated and trumped up. So for me, it would be a wonderful opportunity to be able to show everybody in this country and everywhere else exactly what has been going on.
The year is about to end. What is your message to Botswana, to the citizens of the region, and of course the continent and the world at large?
Well, to Botswana, I would just say that they must prepare themselves for the coming elections in order to rid our country of this disease that Masisi has brought upon us. That is what they must be focused on in this year. They should know that I will be coming back. I will be going back, Sophie, no matter what the consequences are. If I get eliminated, that will then, when you talk about the region and the neighboring countries, they will also have to answer for that. That here is a former president who went back to his country and was eliminated by one of their neighboring countries, or even if it's an arrest, under trumped up charges. Is that the kind of thing that we want to have as a legacy of the SADC region? My message to South Africa is that since I've been here, I've learned a lot about the country. And really, for me, it's like being at home. Really. It's just a bigger, much bigger Botswana. You know, I speak Setswana. Okay, some people may say it's not that good, but I can converse in it. And I can go literally anywhere and engage anybody in Setswana, and I'm understood, and you can carry out a conversation. So it's like being at home. The type of life that I live in Botswana, the type of life that one lives here, when you go to the shops and everything, what you see on the shelves, is pretty much the same, but just a much, much bigger version. And I know the country here is going through challenges like many other countries have been going on. You know, this Ukraine, the Russia war on Ukraine, been extremely unfortunate and has affected a lot of people. The cost of living, you know, wherever you switch on your television is not only here, it's in the UK as well. You know, they've gone through so many prime ministers in such a short time. Things are tough around the world. But there's something unique. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something unique that this country has, you know, and I think its biggest asset, the best resource, is the people. And the people that I come into contact with on a regular basis is just a reminder to me, and I often speak to it about the people back in Botswana, that, you know, having crossed the border onto this side, I don't feel like I'm in a foreign country, and I've been treated extremely well. And for the rest of the African continent, it's the same. They have also been going through very tough times, you know, whether it's climate change, whether it is food insecurity. Really, this is a time where we really need to have good leadership in some of the countries. Not all, but some of the countries on the continent are being let down by its leaders. And that is the situation that we're having in Botswana. Because for more than 50 years, you know, we were on a very good trajectory. And we were, can I use the word, the darling of the continent with our democracy. That has now been completely destroyed and eroded by Masisi, who's destroyed our democracy, our culture, and even our faith.
On the other international news, I know you like soccer. I know that you support people who are playing soccer in Botswana. You have demonstrated your passion. The passing on of the great Pele. What is your message to Brazilians and also to the family of Pele and Africans on the continent who really learned a lot from this great football player?
Like you say, the world is the loser with Pele gone. The world is a loser. Something has gone out of our lives. Even if he wasn't playing football anymore at his age, but he was always there. And you know, when we recently had the World Cup in Qatar, we were reminded of Pele. And unfortunately, he was in hospital at the time. He wasn't even able to be there. I'm sure he would have been there to support his team, Brazil, when it was playing. And it would have been such a wonderful gift for him before his passing if his country had managed to win the World Cup. I was hoping Brazil, I know there were teams in Africa that I was supporting, but as they were being knocked out, Brazil, for me, I was hoping would win. Please don't misunderstand me to think that I'm not happy Argentina won. I'm glad Argentina won as well. It's another country I support. But for Pele, it would have been the icing on the cake, because he wasn't able to be there, to have at least seen Brazil win another World Cup. And like you say, he is a footballing icon. I have posted something, a tribute to him, on my Facebook page today, because when I woke up this morning to the very sad news of his passing, but I thought it was also a life that we need to celebrate. And in that same vein, he will never be forgotten. That name will be there forever. So I think to all people who play football, and I think to all sportsmen generally, not just footballers, he will be remembered, and I hope people will remember him for very long. And I believe Brazil have put aside 3 days of mourning. In my opinion, it should have been a week or a month even for such a great man.